Welcome to the final video of week 9. This is, of course, stacks where we put it all together and add a little extra to what we've already talked about. Of course, the QB, wide receiver, QB, running back, quarterback, tight end combinations are what win tournaments. They're what win $1 million. So we want to discuss that. But before we get to it, I do want to tell you, and let me get it up on screen for you, about the promotion we got going on, rotocurve.com/free trial, rotocurve.com/free-trial. Everything that's included with this is what it shows on the screen, the optimized DFS lineups for both DraftKings and FanDuel. You get tools like DVP rankings, points per attempt, red zone utilization. You get exclusive position rankings, projections, and premium cheat sheets. It's a whole lot of goodness for a whole little amount of money. In fact, no money. So check that one out. Jim, let's talk about the stacks this week. So we've been over the quarterbacks, we've been over the wide receivers, we've been over everything. Now let's connect the dots. Who do you like in terms of tournaments?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, I identify Andrew Luck in a good spot. I mean, last week, I think you were on him. You know, a lot of people were on Luck. It didn't turn out.
Rushed for 60 yards, though. He did save the day in that aspect.
Career high in rushing yardage. Ironically, him and Aaron Rodgers both ran for 60 last week, career highs. Just the same exact numbers. Kind of funny. And they play this week. But again, you know, we keep talking about this Packers secondary. They've been getting beat up. I mean, they make a lot of guys look good. Sam Bradford went off against these guys. So I just think it's a situation. We talked about the fact that, you know, Moncrief has caught a touchdown on basically 10% of his targets working with Luck, which is ridiculous. You know, you're talking about like a 4.8% rate for Hilton, which is kind of normal. That's not a knock on Hilton. It's more of a thing that has to do with Moncrief has some sort of, you know, distinct touchdown rapport here with Luck, which we're going to want to target that. You know, obviously, if you're going to spend up for Antonio Brown, I'm going to go get Ben Roethlisberger. I know he's limited and all these things, but
especially on FanDuel, I think we should say that because I think it's easier to fit everyone on FanDuel. So I agree with you.
It is. It's more manageable there. We talked about Dez being a great tournament play. I mean, look, Dak Prescott's a great tournament play too in terms of stacking here because, you know, they're going to go off together if Dez has that multi-touchdown huge game. The other factor is too just the rushing with Dak. It's really been there. I mean, obviously he had an incredible college career rushing. You know, we saw against the Eagles, he took some really nice seams. I think, you know, he's right up there with Cam in terms of, I mean, he's not at Cam's level, but he's probably there at the Kaepernick level right now in terms of.
Let me ask you a question. I don't mean to cut you off, but what do you because I've seen some people subscribe to this theory, and I think the Cowboys offense fits this week, that you stack the quarterback, running back, and receiver if you think they're going to blow them out because you get the quarterback to receiver taking care of the early points, and then you got Ezekiel Elliott closing it out, which means a ton of rushes for him. You could theoretically go Dak, Zeke, Bryant.
This could be a game where all these guys start themselves and each other on their fantasy teams. Yes. This could be a commercial in the locker room kind of game. Yeah, I mean, the Cowboys are that team. I mean, look, I'm a Sixers fan. I know what it's like being that team. This is the team where this is the team where I'm saying it's okay to have a lineup stack against. You know, I think people are afraid of that because of the idea that, you know, there's some compromise. Something has to give somewhere. I'm not sure that's the case here. I mean, look, they're heavy favorites. This isn't just like a small sample that we're talking about now. Only the Atlanta Falcons are averaging more offensive points per drive than Dallas. This is real. It's very real. And it's not all – with Dallas, it's not all highlighted to one game. These guys score every week, and they have multiple ways to do it. So, yeah, Dak Dez, I think, is a natural stack. Honestly, here's a weird one. That same game, if we're talking about kind of game script, I'm not going to pay up for Terrell Pryor here, especially with Scandrick back. What I'm going to do is I like McCown and Corey Coleman as a stack. I mean, Coleman gets deep. He's a big play guy. McCown, for all of his mistakes, he kind of has some Fitzpatrick to him in terms of the interception rates, but he doesn't care about pushing the ball downfield. He'll let it go. He actually has a pretty big arm. He's a big athlete. So, you know, McCown and Coleman, I think, is an interesting stack, especially kind of in that 2015 Bortles kind of way, where what I mean by that is, or even last Thursday night, go ahead and build up that kind of ugly but good fantasy game in a second half. I'll finish up with, you know, Simeon and Thomas. You know, like I said, Trevor Simeon's been pushing the ball a little bit deeper. Thomas is actually getting a little bit deeper. It's not all just this shallow stuff. And I think, you know, you want to beat up on this defense. And I do think that we would see, because he's the more dynamic deep threat, I think you would see Emerson on Sanders. That's kind of an estimation, but if that's the case, I think Thomas and Simeon could have a nice day together.
Yeah, I want to just add to the McCown thing that he kind of brings back Duke Johnson's mojo. They kind of seem to work the best of anyone. So if you think they're going to be playing from behind, obviously the receivers are in play, but he's going to be the guy in the backfield during the majority of the game if they're playing from behind. So if you want to go that route, I think that one makes sense. I'm going to start with Drew Brees because we talked about him in the quarterback section, and the tough part with Brees is that you look at the DV.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. You mentioned Snead. I look at the DVOA. The 49ers literally rank dead last against number one wide receivers, but I agree with you. I don't think Cooks is your average number one. They don't use him like an average number one. So I'm probably not going to roster him. I would probably go Snead with you if I'm going Drew Brees. I'm going to agree with you there. Some other ones, I liked Joe Flacco. I think if I were pairing him with someone, Steve Smith doesn't look like he's going to play. So I wouldn't go that route. I might go Dennis Pitta if I'm going with Flacco. I would pair him with his best friend on the team, and the number one stack for me this week clearly is Cam Newton and Greg Olsen. I'm not a believer in this Los Angeles team. I think 4 tournaments, that's going to be my focus there. I really, really, look at, especially against tight ends, their numbers against them. They've played pretty much Jimmy Graham and the low end of all the tight ends in football. So, you look at the results against them. They really mean absolutely nothing. I do that podcast with London Fletcher early in the week. He says that linebackers will not be able to run with him, and I have to agree with him. I think that this is an overrated defense, and Newton to Olsen is definitely my number one main focus. I was on that Luck to Hilton, but I think I'm going to have to pivot now. I think in tournaments, if you're going to go Aaron Rodgers, the one I like is Randall Cobb. I think he's more likely to find the end zone than Montgomery if you're going with that stack. I like Rivers to Tyrell Williams if we're going that route. And sadly, I hate to admit it, but I like Sam Bradford and Kyle Rudolph just because of the matchup and just because of how cheap both are. Bradford literally the absolute minimum. Rudolph very cheap.
Right.
Yeah, and they're like kind of the Coors Field of tight ends now, where literally everyone. You look at the last 2 weeks. Both tight ends were priced at exactly 5,600 on Fantasy Draft, and both finished as top 4 tight ends. Vernon Davis didn't even score, and he was a top 4 tight end against the Lions.
They get downfield too, is the thing. It's not just their linebackers; it's their safeties too.
Yeah, and Rudolph has been targeted in terms of red zone target percentage, the third most of any tight end this season, and he scored the third most touchdowns. So this is a true tight end one. We didn't get to mention him because we don't do a tight end segment, but I just don't see how you don't play Kyle Rudolph just about everywhere this week, unless you're going with that Greg Olsen stack. Did we miss anything in terms of stacks?
No, I dig it. I think we're here. This is it. It's kind of the combination, right, of the matchups that we've seen. We're putting them together. But, yeah, I think the one I'm most excited about, even though I'm an Eagles fan, is actually Dak and Dez.
Yeah, I really, really like that Cowboys team. I was excited about it last week. I don't want to go all seasonal on you, but I got Dak in a seasonal league, and this guy just looks like the real deal. So it's kind of to the point where I want shares of him every week because he can do it every which way. I talked about it with London. We think we see some Donovan McNabb in him.
I definitely do, especially, you know what, on that play, on that game-winning play to Witten, that was completely a McNabb play.
Yeah, run around, and all of a sudden, you create enough time that –
yeah.
And Witten's not a guy who easily gets open either. So it really takes – you look at his yards per reception this year. They're just brutal. I think he's been over 30 yards receiving once. So that's not a guy who's been getting open. So for him to create that much time is just impressive. I agree with you. I think Cole Beasley's too expensive, and I think Dez is the number one guy. So this Cowboys offense is really a focus of mine this week. With that being said, I don't want to leave you without reiterating that you should be trying, if you have not already, this free trial for rotocurve.com, or even signing up for a membership, even better. But first, rotocurve.com/free trial. Of course, position rankings, projections, cheat sheets. You get the optimized lineups. You get the must-have tools. So go ahead and do it for week 9. You've already wasted 9 weeks this week where you could have been this year where you could have been winning if you would have done it. So do not wait any longer. Jim, it's been fun this week. Let's win the $1 million this week. I know we haven't done it yet, but I think we'll both be gunning for it. If you had one favorite stack and a few extra players, who would you put in the millie this week? Let's go out with that.
What one favorite stack in addition to Dak and Dez, or
just give me your top 5 players from your Millie Maker lineup.
Okay, it's going to be Dak and Dez. I actually think, like I said, I think McKinnon is a weird kind of moneymaker this week. Just in terms, I have to pick somebody who's going to have a really low ownership. I think Corey Coleman is going to go off in kind of a strange garbage time kind of awesomeness. Other than that, I actually do like Ty Montgomery still this week, and I think Devontae Booker is going to be the kind of guy that you're going to see in the top of 10 in most huge tournaments.
I think for my Millie lineup, I'm going to trust that new switch to Minnesota. I'm going Bradford Rudolph. I'm going Ezekiel Elliott. I'm going with a little Sterling Shepard, and then I'm spending up elsewhere, and I'm hoping that will lead me to the promised land. Again, I love that Sterling Shepard talent, but until next time, good luck this week. We'll see you guys in week 10.